Yo, welcome to Becoming Unfiltered, guys. It's your one and only Watch, your favorite host ever in life, and I am here with your probably second or third or fourth or fifth favorite host in life.
Wow. Hi.
You're my favorite host.
Bola's here.
Bola is here.
And we are coming unfiltered.
We are,
We're coming back as we promised.
No, we are, but we're coming unfiltered with a guest, our first guest ever in life.
Coming unfiltered plus.
Plus, I like that.
I don't know if
Put
I
that
like
on
that.
a t-shirt.
I don't know if I like that.
You like that?
Brand.
I don't know if I like that. I think it makes me feel like I'm like like the stepchild. Like,
No, in
Wow.
addition.
No, you're
like
like
with the parentheses. You know what I mean?
this is
That's
like
how I feel.
we're like a tricycle now.
Oh,
Yeah.
We
Yes.
are. I'm the front wheel, of course.
A unit.
No, it's fine.
You
So
thought-
we do have a guest.
Yeah, she's already spoke. So.
Oh, sorry guys.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Lo.
This is Lo, guys. So she's here, and we're gonna be talking about some really, really deep stuff. So no jokes today. You know, we're
Lies.
we're gonna have some jokes. We
There'll be
are.
some jokes.
We are. But Bola, yeah, let's. Why don't you tell me what
So
we're talking about?
what we're going to talk about is a topic that I think cycles through conversations quite often, whether public or private. We want to talk about just the perception of domestic violence and what the public response tends to be and or private responses are, and we're just kind of gonna undress that and unravel what our opinions are and just kind of see how we can challenge what those perceptions are and what we think is unhealthy generally just about that perception.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bola and I, the genesis of this thought came from the whole Fabulous situation. Your favorite rapper, right, Lo? Is that your favorite rapper?
Fabulous is
I'm
no
sorry.
one's favorite rapper. Fabulous is not his mother's favorite rapper.
Yeah, so, Fabulous, or as many of you like to call him, Fabo. He
Is that a thing?
he has
Like
still has a girlfriend of what, 8-9 years?
No,
Longer.
it's more like 15.
Oh,
probably
15.
Their
Yeah, girlfriend
eldest
of
son is
15
10 years.
Yeah.
And a couple of weeks ago, you decided to punch her, her
Allegedly.
teeth out. Allegedly. Excuse me, because I was checked on Facebook several times about using the word alleged.
Oh, damn, alleged.
So apparently,
So sick. I'm so
her teeth were missing, and somehow, some way, it's still alleged that it could have been.
There
that, but
was
it
an
could have been
assault
something else.
that took place.
Yes.
And there is law enforcement documentation of this assault that took place. And the unfortunate victim of this was Emily B., as we've seen on
Allegedly.
Love and
Excuse
Hip
me,
Hop.
look, excuse me. I can't hear that allegedly word no more.
I'm trying.
Long story short, there was an incident where Emily was punched in her face
Damn.
7 times. We're not gonna say by who, but his name, I think he writes like Fabo, like Goofy. Somebody in that area punched her in the face repeatedly 7 times, so she had severe damage to her front teeth, and they had to be later removed. This same person also threatened her life and her father's life, and that was on video. But that again, that's alleged. We can't really.
Well,
speak
that's
on
not
that.
alleged.
No,
That
no,
is
no, no,
factual.
No. People are still throwing that alleged.
People are still
Well,
throwing that
people
alleged
are
out there.
trying to suggest that the video was somehow
Manipulated. Yeah.
and or just kind of
So again, alleged.
staged in some way.
Allegedly,
someday
even though-
That is not alleged.
No. That's what people are.
No, that's what people say. America,
You know?
one day we're going to have a podcast on the term alleged, because we need to figure out what alleged actually means. But meanwhile, in this podcast, what really stemmed this with Lo giving that explanation to what happened with Fabulous and his girlfriend, his long-term girlfriend, was more so the reception publicly of the transgression. And we see a common theme, like a reoccurring theme with celebrities and public figures, where when they do something wrong, and especially of this magnitude, like a domestic violence issue, if that person is of favor, if he has likability, there's a lot of defense from both men and women, for that particular celebrity, that accuser. And I just wanted to ask you both, like, why? Where does that stem from? And is that even healthy for not only just our community, but just like the public figure in general? Because some will question, I would argue that it creates a certain level of delusion that makes that celebrity think that he or she can get away with that all the time because they're not suffering any consequences. They're not going to jail. They're getting bail. You know, their career isn't really suffering, and people are just making defenses for them. So, Lo, what's your take on that?
Well, I would say, in my opinion, the defense for these actions comes from fans and their protection of this idealistic view that they have of their favorite rapper or singer or actor or whatever the case is. Believing anything negatively about them would shatter the image that they had of them, that they have built through the relationship that they developed with their music or their movies or their poetry or whatever it is that they do.
Right.
It would completely shatter their idea of who this person is. So instead of believing that this person might not be who I think they are, they would rather believe things that fit their own narrative.
Right.
And create loopholes in stories that will support how they feel about this person, because their idea of who this person is more important than the victim and what this person actually did and how their actions affected other people.
But isn't that a bit hypocritical though, Bola? Because if you think about it, you're like, you know, everybody kind of has morals, right? You know, I think a lot of guys kind of right, benefited the doubt, kind of, sort of. But yeah, everybody kind of has morals, right? Where they're like, you know, I think most guys, if you come up to a guy and you're like, do you believe in domestic violence? Like most guys would say, no. Like, no, I don't believe in that. Guys should hit a woman. Well, I mean, I would hope.
Or I don't support
it. Right, right. And, you know, maybe a guy in which they don't know, let's say if it's just like some regular Joe Schmo off the street, if he's like beating a woman, like he may feel at least bad for that woman to the point where he may want to defend her by calling the police or.
Absolutely not.
You don't think so?
Absolutely not.
So you don't think that there's a certain level of hypocrisy between how people favor celebrities in this situation and how they would favor like a regular like Joe Schmo on the street?
In a way, yes, but also no. I think that domestic violence is one of those closed door issues, that one of those this is not my business issues.
Okay.
So people tend to look the other way. I've been in situations where I've seen girls getting choked up, like on multiple occasions, and I've been with men, and it was me who said something. Mm-hmm. It was me who stepped in and said, "Get your hands off of her."
Right, but did the guy think it was like the guy that you're with? Did he think it was okay, or did he just not want to put himself in that situation of altercation?
Well, they grabbed me and they said, "Stay out of it."
And didn't do anything.
No.
Okay.
And I said, "Let me go." And I said, and then I went on to the exchange. Mm-hmm. But it's been women, like I said, women stand up for the most part. I think, you know, there was this video I saw on YouTube where this pregnant lady was on a train and she's arguing with her boyfriend, and the boyfriend hauls up and punches her, and it's this little white lady this big. It's a whole train full of men, women, everything. It's this little white lady, and she's like, "Don't fucking touch her." And I'm not playing, and stood in between them and would not move until that lady got off the train by herself with a room full of men.
Wow.
And it's like, unfortunately, and this is not to bash anybody, but unfortunately I feel like men see domestic violence as one of those closed door issues.
Right,
this is not my business. Yeah. I'm not going to be in that.
And I think why that is that there was a time where women, if you were married to a man, were considered property of their husbands, much like their children, and there weren't many laws to protect women from being abused by men. And so it has always kind of been, culturally at least, thought that this is a in-house thing, like this is a husband and wife issue, and we shouldn't intervene because things will get messy. Instead of the response should be, I should protect this person, this whole human being that is being abused by someone who is supposed to love and respect her.
Right. I do think there are some subtle differences between with the perception of domestic violence as it pertains to Joe Schmo and a celebrity, right? So, and I'm gonna base that off of what you guys talked about with the kind of like what you said, Lo, about like closed doors. It's like a thing when it's a Joe Schmo, it's like, yo, that's not our business, yo. Let's stay out of that. when it comes to celebrities, people make it their business.
They do.
And they don't try to be discreet and say, oh, it's none of our business. Let's let them be in peace. You rarely see that. Instead, what you see is, well, let's see what she did to now maybe provoke him. So that's usually, I feel like, the narrative in defense of that celebrity. Touch on that.
But I've seen both. Like, I've seen that, what did she do? And I've also heard, and I feel like what you're saying is a different version of what I was kind of saying. Like, instead of this is in-house, like let's handle this in-house or let them handle this in-house, it's become, well, let's wait till all the facts come out. We don't know what really happened. We're not in their relationship. We don't know what happened between the two of them. So instead of phrasing it like that's their business, it's let's wait on the facts.
And I think both are used to basically deny that what has happened is not true. So I think that when people suggest, oh, let's wait for the details to come out, we don't know if she provoked the situation, we don't know how it led to what happened or what took place, or this threat, or someone having a knife in their hand. People just like to kind of undermine what's happened because we just like to feel more comfortable, and it's more comfortable to not confront the issue and to realize that people are whole people, and so there are darker sides of people. So people just want to believe that their personalities are just one-dimensional, and so like this person is, people always say it all the time, like when they come to defense of these men who are alleged abusers, they're like, he's a stand-up guy, he would do anything for anyone. Or and they kind of just defend their personality when we are talking about their character.
Mm-hmm.
I also just want to rewind for a second and just go back to the Fabulous situation, because I think it's just a perfect example of the way that people don't have or are not informed about the way domestic violence works. And I want Lo to just give us some context about that. In the video we watched, Fabulous threaten both Emily B and her father outside of their home that they share together, and he questions why the father is present while having a sharp object in his hand, allegedly a knife, and Emily B tries to film him, and he gets closer to her, and I've heard some commentary about why would she get close to him if she was actually a victim, or why wouldn't she want her father present? They must have got into it some way or have some type of conflict. So I just want Lo to just talk about like why this very vividly looks like a standard domestic violence case.
Right.
Yeah, it definitely does. Even them,
or typical.
Yeah, even them recently being at Coachella together. A lot of people have been criticizing her and him for that, like just, and they're back together and y'all did all that and y'all was gonna cancel Fab. Let me tell you something, Fab is still canceled. Like that has not changed. Because there is this cycle of right, like it's almost like a story, like rising action, then climax, then you're coming back down, and then like so there's this period of there's this tension building period, there's this explosive incident, and then there's the honeymoon phase. People go right back into it. There's apologies, there's tears, there's I'm going to therapy, or there's making promises, or there's actually getting engaged in services with really no plan to follow through, but you're doing this in order to quote unquote save your relationship.
Right.
So they're pulling out all the stops at this point to try to make sure that they can get you back.
Right.
And it works a lot of times. And often it takes victims of domestic violence 7 times before they're actually able to leave. So they attempt to leave 7 times before they're actually able to leave the relationship. Also in the video, when he was saying things, he was making threats to Emily's father, saying things like, I got a bullet with your name on it, cursing him out, like, what are you doing in my house? To me, that speaks to that isolation piece, which is really like the core component of domestic violence, in my opinion. Some people will argue that it's power and control, but in my opinion, the power and control does not work without that isolation piece.
And I will say this, Lo dealing with domestic violence victims, that's what you do, right? That's kind of like your line of work.
That's what I did.
Okay, that's what you did,
Yeah,
right?
that's
So
what I
you
did.
that's your area of expertise. That's your line of education, things like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so she knows what she's talking about, America. She does.
mean,
So just
look,
throw that out.
I mean, you can look it up.
Thank you,
you
Watch.
can look it
Yeah.
up. It's
It's like you
we
look
ain't
it
out
up.
here with fraudulent.
Right.
We bring in people with facts. You feel me? You know.
But that's just in my opinion. Like we do a lot of work around the power and control
Complex,
dynamics,
yeah.
like the cycle of abuse, things like that. But to me, none of that works without that isolation piece.
Somebody who is not informed like you are, or doesn't have that area of expertise in your line of work, and in this issue, this topic, would say, well, you know, why can't she as an adult make that decision to leave? Like, why is she the one putting up with this? She may even like this type of behavior because it gives her a certain level of attention that feeds her. So why is it that a grown-ass woman can't walk away from a detrimental situation if it's that bad? What's the response to that?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. That is my
ready, guys.
response. It is because it's just the long and short answer is that it's just not that simple. We ourselves as adults can sit up here and say, "Oh, well, I would never take, and I would never do, and I would never get involved with." But first of all, domestic violence does not happen overnight. It's your partner just doesn't wake up one day and smacks you across your face. Like, that's not how it works. There are also several barriers that are in place that make it more difficult, not prevent, but makes it more difficult for a victim of domestic violence to leave. And a lot of times,
I also want to add that a lot of victims don't even identify as victims.
That
They
is very
don't
true.
know that
True,
they
true.
are being abused. And they think that they are just in a relationship with an unhealthy person, and they think they can love them through it. But continue.
the savior complex.
Do
I
they
can
blame
say
themselves too? Is there a lot of that?
Absolutely.
A lot of guilt.
If I and other people as well. This is why this what did she do concept is so detrimental to survivors of domestic violence, because it only reinforces that this was my fault, not this person should not have ever put their hands on me.
Yeah. I will also say this. I think for the people on the public defense team who want to defend a guy like Fabulous or Chris Brown, who we'll get into in a little bit, Bola's ready. They also, I think the way the legal system works also helps the defense team create their defense, in the sense of the legal system is all about, let's wait until we get all the facts before we get into trial. We got to accumulate everything. So now people like to use that as a means of kind of dissing the first wave of accusations that come against the accuser, you know, for the sake of the victim, you know, and I do feel like that's really, I think it's unfortunate, and I think it's ironic that, you know, using all the facts, being thorough, something that is supposed to help both victims is something, not victims, but both parties, the victim and the accuser, is something that's really only helping the accuser and really hurting the victim.
Absolutely. And also it has to do with a lot of people's relationship with love. A lot of victims that I worked with, the abusive relationship that caused them to enter our program was not the first.
Right.
The abuse stemmed from either childhood or what they saw in their household, and that is not the only reason that a person becomes a victim of domestic violence, but those do contribute, because you do learn to associate pain with love. This person loves me, but they also hurt me. That doesn't mean they don't love me.
Right.
So that's something that they begin to associate from an early age. And if you don't work to fix that, you will continue to make that association in your head. And when you are physically harmed or emotionally harmed in a relationship, you feel like it's normal.
Right.
It doesn't feel like abuse, it feels like love.
Right. No, that's real.
So
Yeah.
psychoeducation is a big piece, like talking to people about what abuse looks like, what is healthy and what is unhealthy. Like
Yeah.
like Bola said, a lot of victims don't really understand that they're being abused. I work with a lot of victims, and we would go and see them and talk to them. I worked in a hospital setting, so it was kind of intense a little bit. And so we would talk to them, and we would, you know, let them know what our program did. We're a domestic violence agency. We do X, Y, Z. And they would say, "Oh, well, I'm not in that." And I would say, "Okay, well, can you just take a look at this power and control wheel? If nothing fits, I'll leave." And so I would hand it to them, and they would read it over, and you could see the change occur on their face, and they'd be like, that,
yeah.
that.
Wow.
that.
So you're seeing it as it happens,
and get to point it out like, oh yeah, this happens.
Right.
This happens. This
is their
happens.
face changing as they're?
Yeah, like you can see them
Wow.
like whoa, like it's like a whoa on their face when they're going through it. So a lot of people really don't know, and I know it sounds crazy, like how do you not know you're being like, but it's really a lot of people who don't have that understanding of what a healthy relationship is, so they don't know how unhealthy their relationship is.
And a lot of domestic violence victims don't recognize themselves in their relationship.
Absolutely.
So the person that they think they are, which is oftentimes a person that wouldn't stand for this type of abuse, isn't the person that's actually existing in the relationships that they're in. So there is like just kind of internal turmoil that is occurring constantly, and much of that has to do with the abuser, because they do break down very strategically their victims. Like, these are not women who are, there's very like high-powered women. Like, domestic violence doesn't have a certain demographic.
Yeah, it's not like a class-based.
It's not a class-based thing. It's not a race-based thing.
Right.
It's literally anyone. And so these men do go through, if you will, if I'm allowed to say, a grooming process somewhat in the way that they do attack their victims. So they do, they come across very well liked.
Who, the guy?
The guys.
Okay,
They usually approach these women very sweet and kind, and these women oftentimes linger on to the man that they were introduced to throughout that relationship, and think that they've done something wrong to make him the person that he becomes, who he's always been.
Exactly.
So they might wine and dine them. So that's why the apology stage keeps them there all the time, because they're like, oh, he is in there.
This is who I
fell in love with. Oh my gosh, like, wow, he remembers my favorite flowers. And at the same time, this person will break down their self-esteem constantly, whether it's just about what they're wearing, what they look like, and it'll make them question themselves. And so it makes their insecurities just kind of loud and just like very apparent, and they can't really kind of work around that.
And I think, I'm sorry. I think what you're saying is really important, because it is not always domestic violence, and the process that you go through from being with somebody to being in an abusive relationship is not as loud as everybody likes to make it seem. Like, it's not. And
people only focus on the physical assault and not the emotional abuse that
but
gets
they
you
even
there.
make that extreme. Like, they have to call you a fat slut every day in the morning.
Wow.
You know, like, and but that's how they make it seem. Like, it's a really loud thing. But it's like, oh, it's you change your hair. And it's, oh, I really liked your hair when it was the other way. You know, oh, you know,
but
no. It's not. It's not
very
wrong
subtle.
if it's well intended.
Okay,
You know what I
okay.
mean?
So, that's
and I was just gonna go back to that. So, but it's things like that. It's very subtle. It's, oh, you know, that's like, I don't know about that skirt. Like, it's not you're fat, you're ugly.
Right.
Nobody wants
it's not
you.
That
It's, oh, you're so attention seeking.
Right.
Oh, you're really gonna wear that red lipstick to the meeting today?
And it can go to that extreme where it's, you fat slut, how dare you go out
It can
looking
evolve.
like that.
Yeah.
Right. But it's not as loud as everybody likes to portray it as.
Right.
And I think the thing about domestic violence that's so tricky is that the way that you end up in a domestic violence situation is the same way that you end up in a healthy situation.
Right.
Now, the thing about it is, a lot of stuff is following the normal trajectory of a relationship.
Okay.
Like, so for example, you date somebody, you like them, you're spending more time with them. That's normal, right? But you're also spending less time with your friends and your family.
Isolation.
See, speaking to that isolation piece. Now, with somebody that's a healthy person, that doesn't matter. It's fine. Like, you're still gonna have time to spend time with your friends when you want. Even if you're so wrapped up in them, they might be like, go with your girls, go with your guys, it's fine. But so that's part of it. You meet somebody, you start spending.
And sometimes they may even encourage you to do that, but then guilt you
afterwards.
Wow. Psychological warfare is real.
So it's like, but you're following the normal trajectory. So you're getting closer, you're moving closer together, and so then you guys decide to move in with each other. That's a big step for a relationship. But now all of a sudden, somebody has unrestricted access to you all the time. They know when you come home, when you leave, what your schedule is, where you should be, when you are there, when you're not there.
They know your patterns, your tendencies.
Exactly, and that's not.
It's control.
And that's not unhealthy with a healthy person.
Right.
And so, say you move closer, okay, and you guys are getting married. You guys are sharing finances. All of a sudden, and it's not even all of a sudden, you guys start sharing finances. You have kids. That's normal. Baby, I don't want you to work no more. Or she says, babe, I want to stay home with the kids.
Right.
Vice versa. And now all of a sudden, you guys are sharing finances, but they're one partner's finances, and you're having less and less access to the money, which makes it more difficult to leave because you don't have the resources to
And
leave.
your
Right.
financial
Because guess what? You don't have no family no more. You don't have no friends because you don't have those connections with them anymore to reach out to them and say, hey, I need a place to stay. And I also don't have the money to go get a hotel room with me and my kids.
Right.
It's not like this huge dramatic thing. You're following the normal trajectory of a relationship. One is just with an unhealthy person and one is with a healthy person.
Right.
And I would like to say that there sometimes with abusers there is some trauma that takes place in their background that also
Absolutely.
allows them to connect with their victim in a certain way. So they may
Absolutely.
say, oh, when I was growing up, etc. happened, and
And it was
I have
okay.
some unresolved issues with
Yeah.
this, and that might make the victim empathize with them and therefore feel that this is the cause of why the abuse is occurring.
And contribute to that. I need to be their savior complex. They are in danger. I need to help them. I need to save the day. I think that's one of, again, that's a large part of it. I can fix them. I can change them. They're broken. How can I leave them?
I'm glad that you brought that up because my next question was going to be, and I really, because I'm thinking about it from a resolution standpoint, like a problem solving standpoint. Like, what's more likely, the guy coming, not going to say the guy, but like the accuser coming in and saying, all right, you know what, I am wrong. I do feel regret. I know that I'm battering you and I want to be better. And him actually working towards that way, or the woman basically coming together and coming together on, like, for herself and saying, you know what, like, I can't take this abuse anymore. Like, whatever steps or whatever gets her there, her getting there versus him getting there, which one's more likely in that type of situation? Her. Okay.
And I think it takes a lot for survivors of domestic violence, because when you think about just how limited their resources are, a lot of times they have to give up everything to go.
And there's
Like-
also a statistic I just wanted to add in that domestic violence victims or people who have or survivors of domestic violence are 70 times more likely to be killed when they actually do leave their partners
Or
in
after.
relationships or after. Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, and I'm not going to say every time because everybody's situation is different, but a lot of times these people have to give up everything to leave. And if that means I have to take me and my child to go live in a shelter, that's okay. And people make it seem like that's a little decision. That's not.
Right.
Like, I have to give up everything that I own, everything that I love, and go live in secrecy.
Right.
Because it's like these shelters, you don't know where they are.
No.
There are shelters in Chicago, you don't know where they are. Like, and they can't tell nobody where they at. They can't have visitors.
Yeah.
Like, they are now living under similar restrictions. Not the same, this is a better situation because nobody's harming them.
Right.
But they are still living under restrictions. They are coming from one situation where they're living under restrictions to another situation where they're living under restrictions. Like, but they also don't have anything that they used to have. So it's like, it's a really hard decision for a survivor to make, to say, I'm gonna let everything go for me and my family, even if that means leaving my family.
So,
And I also just wanted to point out, just with your question, you had stated that the abuser or predator, if you will they come to some conclusion of feeling remorse?
yeah.
Or I don't think that they're absent of regret. I think remorse is probably a little too far for abusers to get to, but I do think that they do feel regret. I think that the apologies, though they are empty apologies, they do feel bad for harming someone. I don't think that they're absent of regret. I don't think that they're not actually human. So I just kind of want to say that, like, I feel, if that's true, I feel
So
like
is
they're
it
capable of
so is it
emotions.
possible for, okay, and I'll use Chris Brown as an example. Is it possible for somebody, because Bola's ready, look at this, she out here doing
So
little
am I.
dances.
Look,
Hey, you
I'm
both
ready
of
as
them ready.
well.
Hey, both ready. So, like, for somebody like Chris Brown, who everybody knows EBL Rihanna, right?
Allegedly.
Oh, that
Look,
was
allegedly he did.
allegedly. So for someone like Chris Brown, right? Like, is he had the whole period where he had to do the community service. There was that public like backlash, where pretty much nobody liked his music suffered, his celebrity suffered as a whole. He had to answer tough questions, in the media. It seems like he, to some degree, turned over a new leaf. Is that even possible for a man? Because you just said like, or somebody in this position, because you just said like it's hard for you to experience remorse. Regret. Remorse possibly, not regret. And I'm of the opinion to believe that regret is something that will cause you to change for the better rather than remorse. I don't think remorse is strong enough. And if that's the case, can a guy who has been a domestic violence abuser, can that guy actually change for the better at some point, and how?
I would say yes.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Go ahead.
With the Chris Brown situation, I think that because our society, we have such a punitive system, and he did take a large loss in income and in his
Everything.
in the way that people perceived him, which affected
Fan base.
his fan base. He was canceled.
Chris
Brown.
Like, he
He
was
was canceled
canceled.
for a little bit.
Before we was canceling people. Like
He wasn't
that.
completely canceled
But
because
no,
he had his hardcore.
No, Chris
He
Brown
was.
was canceled.
So we gonna act like we ain't see those them tweets of them little girls.
I think
I
that's you pointed out a large piece, because I don't think that the black community was completely sold on throwing Chris Brown away. But
No.
the white
Mainstream media. Oh, he was gone. He was canceled.
Media
Black community
did not fuck with Chris Brown for quite
He
some
put out
time.
Deuces, and that sold.
Yeah.
It took a while for him to like recover,
Right.
and I think that he did pay a huge price for it. And I do think that Chris Brown was actually remorseful, and I think a key piece of remorse is actually confessing. And so he said that I did do this, and I am very sorry. We saw Chris Brown cry a lot. However,
I'm waiting.
he did have a lot of behaviors that I did not like
Right.
afterwards. Like Chris Brown was still, and I think Laria's gonna speak to this.
Yeah, and also let me say this: is it because you made up? Wait, where are we at right now?
Oh,
Lo, I did want to bring this up though. I want to ask you this. What Bola just said. Bola was like, well, basically the consequence legally, financially, from a fame perspective, all of that kind of caused Chris Brown to now feel a level of contrition, remorse, to the point where now he did become like sincerely apologetic and did want to change. Can that happen without the downfall?
I would say yes. I mean, just like they say for people who are addicted to substances, you hitting rock bottom makes you kind of get your stuff together.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I don't think that has to happen. I think that you actually have to see the flaw in what you're doing.
Right.
I'm one of those people. I don't, even though it's like get Fab out of here, I really honestly don't think that abusers are bad people.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I've seen I've seen a lot of terrible stuff, especially working in the hospital system, seeing directly after incidents and people who are put in the hospital because of them.
And you don't think you don't think they're bad people because they don't know what they're doing. They're ignorant to what they're doing.
No,
right?
I think they know what they're doing, but they think it's okay.
Oh, I see.
Like they have to see the error in what's like what they're doing.
Okay.
And I think that a lot of times because of personal history, childhood history, like whatever the case, they have normalized certain behaviors, and it's not okay. Like
because it's so prevalent.
So in
Right.
the case of Fabulous, like, do you guys believe that he feels remorse? Do you feel like he feels like he's gotten to the point where he sees the error in his ways?
no.
I don't think he wants to lose.
No, I think he's gonna ride this till the wheels fall off. You know what I mean? Because he's so busy trying to convince people that he is not that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That he cannot accept that this is what I did, and that's not cool. Like,
Right.
I can't do anything to anybody who's given a sincere apology and says, this is what I did, it was wrong.
Right.
Like, I want to do better. How can I do better? Help me
Right.
do better.
Right.
Like, and sincerely mean that.
Right.
But like, if you're so busy trying to prove, it's like white people who try to spend so much time telling people they're not racist instead of just not being racist.
Right.
Like, instead of trying to prove to me that you are not a abuser, like a misogynist, like whatever, spend your time actually not being that.
Actualize it. Like, let your actions match what it is that you're saying. And I think that Fabulous just recently released some music, and he was awarded the key to his city. And so
was this after the
this
abuse?
was before.
I was
okay.
like,
This was a couple months before, so he was receiving a lot of recognition for work that he has done. And like you were saying, because he is an abuser, it shouldn't absolve him of being a good person or being a decent person, if you will. I won't use good or bad because that can be kind of convoluted, but I do think that also, not only is it just like unresolved trauma and things that lead up to it, I think it's the perception of how we think of domestic violence. I think that we think that prevalence and normalcy are the same thing. So because it happens a lot and we see it a lot, it's a normal thing. Unhealthy relationships become normal or are seemingly normal because we see it so often. We watch all of these reality televisions where people do not know how to effectively communicate, or we know people who text more than they talk out loud together to someone that they're intimate with, or the idea that people will share intimate or be intimate together and share their bodies but won't speak to each other afterwards. That seems normal because it's so prevalent. People who have like one night stands and things like that and don't speak after, and there's so many songs about it, like if we don't speak in public but behind closed doors you guys are doing everything. But so I think that we have this cultural norm of just like unhealthy things that we appreciate and we glamorize and are part of our values because it happens so often. So I think that domestic violence is just one of those things that we think is normal because we've seen it. Like I've seen it, like as a child, I knew people in my high school, I was a child, I guess a teenager. One of my best friends was dating a guy who she had a restraining order against, and her parents made her have a restraining order against him, but he was sneaking through her window at night. So
yeah, I think Lo really touched on a good point earlier in the podcast, and she basically said like one of the major issues with domestic violence in all these situations and just in which we talked about and just like generally is the fact that it's looked upon as a closed door issue. So it's not talked about with transparency the way it needs to be. And when people do try to talk about it with transparency, because the norm is, oh, this is a closed door issue, I'm not going to get into it. You know, at least definitely as it pertains, like we pretty much all agree on, that's definitely more prevalent with like the non-famous people.
And it makes the victim bear a lot of shame.
And it makes the victim bear a lot of shame. And it makes the victim feel as if, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, it makes the victim feel as if like they can't voice, you know, any type of, you know, emotion that they have, feelings in which they have about it, because, you know, it's a closed door issue. Why you air your business out there?
Which contributes to that isolation piece, which continues that cycle.
And they think that they're alone.
And it's just honestly just so hard to get people to understand that like it is important to keep your doors open for these people.
Right.
Like I think that the worst thing that you can do if you know somebody that's going through that is to say, you know, well, I told her to leave, or I told him to leave, and they didn't want to. Right, and they didn't want to, so I don't have nothing to do with them, because now you just made that barrier that much thicker for them to get through, to get out.
So, and that's a good point. So, in a situation like that, where, you know, a woman's telling another woman, like, hey, you need to leave, and she's not leaving, like, it's normal for that person or that woman, it could be a female friend, it could be a guy friend, to just get frustrated, to be like, you know what, I'm going to let her do her. You're saying that's not the best approach because you're isolating her. Yeah. What is the best approach?
To not isolate her.
By continue reaching out.
Yeah, and by even not even telling her to leave. That's, at the end of the day, that is a grown-ass woman, and she knows what she needs to do, but she has to come to that realization on her own. You can tell her all day, because when you do that, you need to leave him, it's almost like punitive, and like, I'm your mother. Like, I'm telling you that you need to leave him, and now you're going to rebel against me, and now it becomes this whole Romeo and Juliet situation, and they're trying to tear us
against
apart,
the world,
and they don't know our love, and he whooping your ass. Like,
Yeah.
you know, so
and I
like,
love you so much
right, and
more
I love
than
you
them.
so much, then they love. So you just only fuel that unhealthy dynamic.
True.
So honestly, I've been in that situation several times. I've had friends, I've had family members be in abusive relationships, and I would give them the information, and it seems like I was cursed when I was working at the domestic violence agency, saying nobody been getting hands put on ever since. But when I was there, that's just what the people in my life are going through, and I would give them the information. They would say, "Oh, you know, he said he's going to do better." I say he's probably not, but you know, if he doesn't, you have options. I would talk to you have options. You don't have to stay there.
Right.
You know, that's one of the biggest things that we did to advocate for clients is to let them know they did have options, because they look at this person as, this is my whole world, this is my source of income, this is my only source of love, this is my only source,
security.
right, this is my shelter, this is who provides my shelter, this is who provides my food, like literally everything. So I would let these people know that, like, you have options, and also if you ever need to talk, call me. Like, I'm never not going to answer. I'm never not going to pick up the phone. Call me. You know what I mean? Like, and I made myself available to them, and they knew they could honestly call me and not get a judgmental XYZ. And I would ask them, which low do you want to hear from today?
Yeah.
Do you want to hear from therapist low? Do you want to hear from the person that loves you low? Do you want to hear, like, you want me to drive down there and pack up your stuff low? Like, who do you want to hear from? Like, and honestly, just being a constant source of support and letting them know how valuable they are. That's how you support that. Like, you know, I think the world of you. Like, I would constantly tell, I think the world of you. You deserve so much. Like, you are so amazing, and constantly speaking life into them, and speaking not just life but light, like, and positive things into them, because they always hearing BS. Like, so you honestly just being a supportive, non-judgmental space for them, even though it's hard, because you're like, I want to wring this person's neck.
Right.
Like, but
It takes a lot of patience.
It does.
Yeah.
But that's what helps them to get out. Like, and one of my friends who dealt with it, she was like, you were the only one who did not judge me. You were the only person who did not look at me different. And I felt like I could leave and still be okay with you. Like, because the worst thing you can do in that situation is try to make your friend pick a side between their abuser.
Right.
Like, it's not going to work out.
Right.
So I have a question, and speaking of Chris Brown, I just wanted to ask, recently there was a case or a story that broke where he had his hands around, both of his hands around the young lady's neck, and the response was, we were just play fighting. So I just kind of want to talk about, like, this culture of just play fighting and love tapping, and where we draw the line, because young WNBA boy recently him and his he and his young lady friend, I think they're 16 or 17, they're quite young, 18
to 17
18 to 17, and they're dating, and there was some footage of him kind of just beating her out her clothes. And her response was, "Oh, we were playing a game and we was just playing," and much like the response that Chris Brown had. And of course, Chris Brown's going to be demonized because he has
a history.
He has a history. So I just want to know, where do we draw the line between play fighting and love taps and abuse?
Right.
Physical abuse.
That's a good
I
question.
don't know, because I actually do participate in the play fighting. Like, I definitely, like, I do.
It'd be a little
like,
cute.
You know what I mean?
A little foreplay.
Right. You know, like, I mean, look, that's another conversation.
That's another conversation another day.
But I do participate in that. I do. So I can't sit up here and condemn somebody else for something that I do. Like, and I of course, I know we're playing, and I'm not gonna hurt somebody.
But sometimes you do elbow kind of go out of place.
No, I tricked somebody too on accident. Like, it was just like, ooh, I'm sorry.
Well, and I think that would be a situation where someone, like a guy or girl looking at that situation, who may try to be neutral, or may try to, like, defend the accuser, would say, well, neither of us can tell what the intention was, so why don't we just take her word for it? or take his word for it. And I don't know if there's any other way to do it outside of that if you're going to look at it objectively, because you can't just assume that, like, if I'm like, if me and you are play fighting and like I have you in a headlock, like, and nobody knows who you or I am, like they don't know that we're playing, like they're gonna basically say like, hey, like he's abusing her. They may call the police on me, and it's up to you for you to now defend me. Now a lot of people will say, oh well, that's typical of a domestic violence victim to defend, you know, and we don't
She
know.
was cohort.
You know,
No,
when
but
you
it's
can.
like, but at the same time, if I don't know, I feel like you can kind of tell. Like
I don't think it's you
So
can,
there
but
were
it's not
several
foolproof
shots
though.
in the Chris
It's
Brown
not foolproof.
I thought they were playing.
images. There was an image where she looked in distress.
I mean, I saw that.
Yeah,
I
I
feel
didn't,
like
yeah.
you playing too much at that
Yeah,
point.
I didn't
But-
see the NBA one.
He,
But the
he
rest-
looked like he applied
But
pressure.
the rest of the
Yeah.
images was like they were playing. Like it was when she was like,
And-
whoa, like you know,
and-
like.
and-
but
and
he
then-
was. But you could. To me, it was like you could tell they were playing.
And then sexual, you know what I'm saying?
Both
Sometimes
hands,
sometimes like you
I've
said,
had that.
it could
I've
be
had
a,
somebody, like,
sometimes it
you
could
know,
be.
Get off my neck. You be like,
It
"Get
could
off
be
my
a
neck."
little
Like,
foreplay where, you know what I'm saying?
Like, you be-
Chris Brown could be, you know what I'm saying, grabbing her neck a little bit.
I also kind of wanted to just introduce this into the conversation. This may take things on a
No,
different
but that-
route,
yeah.
but I do want to just say that we are speaking from a very heterosexual privileged standpoint, and I do think that this does look differently in same-sex relationships.
Absolutely.
Oh, of course.
So
yeah.
men can be
Men can be
victims
victims
and
Yeah,
all over
abusers,
the
yeah.
spectrum.
and also same with women and women. So
Yeah.
I just kind of wanted to just introduce that in the conversation because it can look a lot of different ways. But I felt like
Absolutely.
the viewpoint that all of us have been speaking from is heterosexual
And,
relationships.
there are
and that's the
different-
reason why I've been trying to use the word accuser versus man.
Right.
male,
And
female,
there are different barriers, like the threat of being outed. If you leave me, I will out you.
Yeah.
To X, Y, Z. Like there are things like the courts won't take this seriously, which is very true. You can go to court in a same-sex relationship, and they'll say, "Oh, it was just boys being boys. They were fighting.
Right.
They had a fight." Or it was a cat fight. They
Yeah,
had a
girls
cat
being
fight.
girls,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? It doesn't get looked at as domestic violence and something that's serious that could end up, having someone lose their life. It gets looked at as maybe like, oh, they just had a little fight. It was
But then
fine.
domestic violence isn't looked at domestic violence.
I mean,
even with heterosexual
but
relationships.
it's taken a little bit. You know what
Right.
I mean? If I have a fight with a woman
But
on the
it's
street,
doubly
they're gonna say,
oppressive.
and I say I want a restraining order, they're gonna be like, girl, shut up. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Right,
It's
right,
the same
right.
thing. So it's like, but if
Yeah.
I say my partner put their hands on me, I fear for my safety.
Right.
They're gonna take that a little bit more seriously.
Right.
So it's like there are a lot of different there are similar barriers, but again, there are different barriers because again, the isolation piece for them can sometimes be a little bit larger because the coming out process can have you lose some friends and family already.
Yeah.
So this person or this community might be the only people they have, and
Huge risk.
if you remove yourself from this person, you might be removing yourself from this community as well. So there are a lot of there are similar barriers, but there are also additional barriers that they have to deal with.
Yeah.
I have a question for Watch.
All right.
So,
I don't got that much time left, so.
are we on the time? Oh, I didn't know. Okay.
Go ahead,
All
go
right.
ahead.
So, I mean, y'all introduced Chris Brown. So, this is going to be an extended podcast. But I did want to say, I did want to ask just like the male's point of view in domestic violence and just kind of, Laria spoke to it a little bit about like people being whole people and writing people off. Like if your boy or your friend is accused of harming someone, how do you approach that situation?
Yeah,
Or how do you typically
his
see
significant
that
other,
man-
like his partner?
Or you
significant-
saw it. What if
Or-
you saw
or
it?
if you saw
yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean, I don't play with that shit. I mean, I don't. So I would step in. I would interject, especially if that was one of my boys. Like, I mean, first of all, I'd be shocked because I pride myself on not, really not hanging. I don't think I even know anybody who would do anything, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only guy who would say that. So if one of my boys like conducted himself in that manner and actually lifted his hand and hit a woman or like abused a woman verbally in a way that was just like completely uncalled for, like I would definitely pull him to the side and be like, bro, like, yo, you don't need to do that, because number one, I think I've always just been of the opinion that it's very cowardly. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've always like this pick on somebody your own size, like, kind of like that mentality, and that's just not the way a woman should be treated. So
How should women be treated?
Not like
I
that.
feel like that's another conversation.
No, that's another conversation in and of
Like,
itself.
I feel like
You know what I'm
that's another
saying?
conversation.
Nah, that's girl. You open up one.
Right, we
Right.
gonna be here to midnight.
Right.
And then another thing,
Right.
and another thing.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I would definitely interject, and I would let him know, like, yo, like, and again, as a guy, and we talked about this before, you don't want to make it seem like you're getting into your guy's business or issues. So the way I would come into it would be like, yo, like, listen, I'm not trying to get into your business. I don't know what it is you guys are fighting or bickering
But the
about.
guy code has to have some limits.
No, this is the limits of which I'm talking about. I'm letting him know, listen, the particulars of why you're arguing, that's not me. However, the result of it being like concluding into you striking her or calling her names, that can't happen, dog.
Yeah.
You know?
That I want to talk about instigation, right? So there's a lot of talk that a victim can provoke the abuse that occurs or happens to them. So people are like, oh, well, she shouldn't have said that, or she was presenting herself in a threatening way, and so he had to defend himself, or she had to defend herself, and so because of the way that the victim approached them, they needed to kind of subdue them in some way, which required contact.
Respectfully.
Okay, so how do you respectively subdue somebody?
No, respectfully, I just would like to say that's some bullshit. Because I think that even if there's a situation with a man and a woman, or even two partners, and one is stronger, one is, weaker, and it's a clear difference, you can subdue somebody who is attacking you, who is clearly smaller and less, I guess, I don't know.
Stronger?
Yeah, they don't have the ability to do the damage to you that you could do to them.
Right.
Like you can restrain them without punching them in the face.
Right.
Yes.
So the only reason, and I remember this is a real thing. This is a real
Was
thing.
it Ray Rice thing?
Yeah,
That's
the
what
Ray
she
Rice
slapped
situation. There's
him
a
in
lot
the
of
face.
situations
Right,
like that.
and they're like, oh, what did she do? And I think this is the thing with Fab and Emily. It was, oh, well, what did she do? I heard she stole money from him, so that's why he was enraged. I was like, take that bitch to court then, if that's the case.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, take your money back.
But,
Like, just do.
it's like, oh, well, she slept with somebody else. Okay, well,
So what?
break up with her.
Right.
And I would ask when people kept saying, we need to hear the facts, and I said, is there any reason that would justify him punching her 7 times in the face?
Yeah. What facts would justify her?
If the answer is no, I don't want to hear that.
Even even her attempting to punch him in the face several times shouldn't result into him not punching her in the face several times.
I think, and only
she's
excuse,
a small woman. He's a small man,
Well,
but she's a small woman.
But the only thing that causes somebody to abuse a person is a person who wants to abuse a person. Like, it has nothing to do with the person. It's not alcohol. It's not they were drunk and they shouldn't have done da da da. The only thing that has a person abuse another person is themselves. You cannot say something to provoke them. You cannot do something to provoke them. As much as
it's
people,
just in them.
As much as people want to argue that, literally, like, I have been in long-term relationships before, and literally, there's nothing you can say or do to me that's gonna have me take it there with you to the point where I'm like, let me, and I get it. Some people are very emotional and very charged in that way, but like, you wanted to do that. That's not. They couldn't have made you do that.
And it's not even the fact that it's not even about. First of all, you can't make anybody do anything. You can. There's provoking, but nobody's gonna make you lift up a gun and shoot somebody or punch somebody in the face. But again, like I think a lot of it comes down to accountability and maturity. And I've said this before. I think a guy, if you're a male, and if you, I feel like you're mentally mature and you understand just like the type of composure in which you need to have in all areas of life, you will know and understand that you cannot be provoked to hit another woman.
Yep.
There's just nothing that's gonna channel that from you. You will always be composed, walk away, and not be in a situation where you now strike another woman. Now, I will say this. I remember I had an argument with somebody before, and he was like, how about that bus driver in Cleveland who got spat on by that girl? And then I was like, ooh.
So I've seen people say that apparently if someone spits on you or spits at you,
That's assault.
that is
I mean, it is assault.
It requires a physical response, and a lot of people don't feel like they're capable of restricting themselves from punching somebody in the face. So a lot of people rallied for the bus driver. It was like,
Was he in the wrong?
yes.
Was he in the wrong, Lorraine?
That type of force was so unnecessary.
Lo, was he in the wrong?
I personally,
it was excessive force, but I cannot say what I would have done in that situation.
right.
I
So
would
we're not
say-
going to judge him. I'm not going to condemn him. But yes,
So
it
you're
was
saying
wrong.
the force in which he applied was excessive.
It was excessive
But his
force.
reaction was
I think that-
justified.
yeah,
was understood.
Yeah, it's like,
Not
I can't say that it
justified.
was justified, but I honestly, look, full disclosure, I've been spit on before. And if you have ever experienced that,
That will bring out a certain level of rage.
your
in you,
brain go blank.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
it's
your
like,
mind
you know
goes
what I
blank.
mean? Like, you be like, what?
Yeah.
Like, you be like, yo.
And he
It's
was
so
and he
filthy.
was and he was
But-
trying. He was composed for a while
But
during
you
the
could,
entire
but
time.
you could react any kind of way. Like when it happened to me, honestly, I didn't come to for like a good 30 seconds, and I didn't even know that's what happened until the girl was gone. Now, of course, when I seen her later, it was on site, but I didn't even know that that's what happened because it was so like shocking. So my brain went to like shut down. What happened? Like, yo.
Right. I know she just didn't spit on
Like,
me,
it was
I'm
just
not
so
even gonna think
unbelievable.
about
It was
that.
just like,
so
no,
unbelievable.
absolutely not. Like, my brain could not process that at that time.
And his response was to uppercut her.
And it's like, so I can't
throw
say,
her off the
like,
bus.
I can't say if he was right or wrong. I can't say that I justify that or whatever. But also, I don't think people conflate domestic violence and a man hitting a woman or a woman hitting a man.
It's
And
the
those
same
are
thing.
And those are two different things.
That's
One
it.
is with an intimate partner, and one is something.
Right. No, that's real.
And
That's
so
real.
and the intention is different. In domestic violence, the intent is to manipulate and assert power and control.
Right.
In another situation where there are opposite sex and they are fighting, there's a whole nother issue there.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Neither one of them are right. Like, neither one of them are right, but there are two different issues, and that's not a domestic violence situation.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that, first of all, let me say this because I feel like I haven't said it. Everybody should keep their hands to themselves. Like, I don't agree with putting your hands on men either. Like, I don't like when women do that. I don't like when, they just, I'm so mad. Let me just, spin off you.
That's the voice in our head.
No.
It's in my head.
That is the universal voice. That is the.
Yes.
Yes.
You're not gonna do this to me.
Yes.
That's the voice that go off in my head.
That's the
But,
voice. Always. Yep. That's it.
but I don't agree with that at all. I don't think that anybody should be hitting anybody. And I feel like if I'm in a relationship with somebody and I can restrain myself regardless of how angry I get, and this is not to say that I don't have a temper, because I do. Like, my temper is like fire hot.
But
Like,
you channel it differently. Yeah, it doesn't channel until you
it's
punching
like
somebody.
I have a hot temper. So if I can control my temper, then everybody else should be able to do
But you
that.
control it by way of not hitting someone.
I don't throw things.
You don't throw things.
I don't
but
throw things.
You might read somebody for filth.
Filth. But that's it. These are my words.
That's not, but that's
But
not
you-
okay
you-
either.
But I don't-
because that's triggering as well. So
But-
there's certain things like women like to throw around the B word.
I don't do that either.
Whoa, yeah.
I don't
They
do
like
that
to throw
either.
around the B
Yeah.
word and the P word, and
I've done
though
that
those
once.
terms are not gender specific,
Yeah.
women
And
do
those
know
are provoking
that.
terms. Those are provoking
But I
words.
did that once in a very emotionally charged situation. Even when you said if you were to hear or to see a situation between you and, your homies and their girl, and it was something like that, and you would step in, that's so rare. Because I've seen things, like I said, with people and their friends, and I've been the one to say, yo, what's up? Like, or go
Right.
knock on the door, like, y'all alright? Like,
Yeah.
but I've had somebody literally scream in my face in a house full of people, and nobody said nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was just
and
like,
I do feel like also, because I'm thinking about another video on YouTube, and you guys saw this in the New York subway, where that woman, it was like a taller guy, like a lighter skin, and that woman was like making fun of this guy. He seemed like he had like some type of speech impediment.
oh, that's messed up. I didn't see that.
And the guy was basically, he was trying to ignore her, but also responding to her at the same time. And then she kept calling him stupid and stupid. He tried to turn around and walk away. And she had her shoes in her hand, like heels, and hit him in the back of the head with it.
Oh, she was.
So then he turned around and gave her the slap of life.
Oh, I did see that.
Sounded like that.
I did.
Yeah, you saw it. I know you saw
I
it.
did see that.
You ain't see that?
I did.
We can play this after this podcast.
Because he cocked back.
No, he caught back. He
Yeah.
slapped the shit out of her. So,
He did that.
no, he did. So in that situation, Like, I will say he was absolutely in the wrong. But I think what I'm trying to say is, I think it's easier to snap when you feel as if someone you don't know tribes you in that situation.
I also just want to say, like, in anger, right? So we don't recognize people when they're their worst selves, because most times we operate in our relationships with the people that we care about and we love, when they are being their best selves, not their whole selves, their best selves. Mm-hmm. And so, like, we kiki, we having a good time, but when we do get angry and are provoked, certain parts of our brain shut down. Mm-hmm. And we are not being our whole selves in those instances. So I do think that could be why there's some truth to people not recognizing people who offend or commit or are abusive to other people.
Right.
Because we don't actually recognize those people. We don't actually know those people.
Right. Or recognize their own behaviors
as people who are capable,
or even as manipulative, or as controlling in a way. Right. We could say, "Oh, well, I want you to stay with me," and make it a big deal. Like, but this other person has a life. They have friends. They have their own autonomy to do whatever they want to, and that, of course, they should respect you and your wishes and your needs. But if you like, even things like that, like I've seen a lot of the multiple texting now that's being popularized, like it's super cute. I want to wake up like this, and it's like 83 messages. Baby,
you gotta understand that there are still teenagers.
No, but it's
not all of these memes are adults.
These are grown people that are retweeting it. That's what I'm saying. I can't control who wrote it, but these are grown people who are retweeting it, and it's like, babe, baby, I love you. You know I love you. Snookums, wake up, babe.
But
why won't you wake up? And I'm like,
but that speaks to something else. That also speaks to like, and just a lot of people be so attention seeking and mm-hmm. being and feeling empty or hollow mm-hmm. on the inside and really needing that validation. And I think that social media has kind of accelerated the way that how many people feel mm-hmm. that way right. all the time, because people aren't actually interacting as much as they used to mm-hmm. right. unless you have consistent employment or hobbies and things that you proactively socialize to do or commit to. You're not actually interacting with whole people. So with social media, people that fills that void. Mm-hmm. You know, all the likes, all of the responses and the comments and the notifications. So people take that into relationships and they're just like, oh, I should have consistent attention all of the time from the person who I'm involved with. And that's another unhealthy thing. But like we were saying, so we're going to wrap this up. Mm-hmm. And we would like just some feedback on just what perceptions you guys have seen in your real lives on social media about the topics that we have talked about in this podcast. So respond to us.
Yeah, respond to us, follow us, and show Lo some love, because Lo is awesome today. Like, she was awesome.
That's sweet. Look at her, that's sweet.
No, she was dope. She hit us with some nuggets. I learned something today. I hope y'all learned something today. Mm-hmm. So let us know.
And Lo's like my blood sister.
She's not.
We like.
But,
I mean, why you?
But she is right. They don't.
Who don't know?
Oh my God.
We're sisters.
Why?
We're sisters. Okay. You don't have to explain yourself. Okay. We're sisters. We sure are.
They sisters.
Thank you.
Anyways, so like us, follow us, and let us know if we missed anything. Let us know if there's anything that you would want us to highlight, maybe in another topic, like an off branch, whatever the case may be. But this is Coming Unfiltered. Thanks, Lo, for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me.
No doubt. She'll be back.
She'll be back.
Yay.
Yeah.
Bay as fuck.
All right.